It's time for the View in Your Mirror podcast. I'm Katie Harms, and along with Lisa Rubin, we help you check in and curate the best possible you and the best view in your mirror. We share tips, tricks, and strategies from our 35 plus years in our respective industries. We talk about your day from morning to night and everything in between. We share our uniqueness, relish in our shared experiences. Along the way, we share conversation with fabulous people who give us their own thought-provoking insights. So come along as we help you hone the best view in your mirror. Good morning.
Good morning, Katie. How are you?
I'm good, Lisa. It's a beautiful day. The sun is out.
It
I'm
is
in my
also a
happy place.
beautiful day where I am, and it's very hot, and I'm sure it's very hot for you there too.
It is, but I
And
love the heat.
I do too. I
I
do
love a
too.
dry heat.
I like both, and for different reasons. Like I really like a wet heat for my hair when I want to wear it curly, but when I
Well,
want to blow it out, not good. Not good.
I have to say though, as I wrote about recently, my hair in California behaves. It's the weirdest thing, the dry.
That is a little odd.
It's like I wish there was some equation, right? You know, math and I the math thing does not always
That's
work for
doesn't
me.
really work. You in math, no.
You know, it does in so many ways because I had to be very precise mathing for measuring closets and
Oh,
space
that's
and
true.
you think
That's
about
true.
that. So it's, and I do math a little differently than some. I used to drive my husband crazy when I teach the kids how to math. He'd be like,
Yeah,
no, no.
I can see that. All right, we're switching gears and you're distracting me because you really
Okay.
don't want me to do this. But I
Do
I need
what,
to
Lisa?
read something because my wonderful podcast partner on her website, you can read all of these things, katieharms.com. She's a fabulous writer and she wrote something that really touched me and I want everyone else to listen to it. And it's called From Where I Sit. Reflections on Belonging, Identity, and Becoming. I've spent a lifetime sitting in a lot of different places: bleachers, corner tables, design rooms, boardrooms, hospital waiting rooms, the booth at Poppin' Fresh Bakery, where I first looked into the eyes of my birth mother and saw my own face looking back. From every one of these seats, I've been paying attention. These essays are what I've noticed. They're about the rooms that didn't fit and the ones that finally did, about the permission we spend years waiting for that was always ours to give, about hair and faith and belonging and what it means to show up fully, finally, without apology, as exactly you are. I'm not writing from a place of having figured it all out. I'm writing from where I sit, which is somewhere between who I've been and who I'm still becoming. I hope something here lands for you, and if it does, I'd love to hear about it, Katie. Okay, Katie,
Yes.
that was awesome. And it is so true. And it is one of the reasons why we do this podcast. And those words are so you. And it is fabulous. And you have to start writing again because that's how you and I met. Well, not originally. We met in a closet,
Where I
but
used math.
but by the way, everybody, Katie got a little emotional and she should because that was so well written and it's so true and it's so her voice.
Thank
But
you.
if you remember about 8 or 9 years ago, I came to you because I knew you were a writer and I wanted you to write my book because of what I did, because I don't write. I am not a writer. I am terrible at it. I can talk to you, but don't have me put it down on paper. And you know that from the podcast. You know how bad I am at that.
You take great notes. Come on.
I take great notes, but they're never notes about me. They're
Oh,
notes about everything else.
so maybe you'd be an okay writer writing about anything but you.
Yeah, I don't, maybe. I never thought about that.
It's really interesting. Every time you say you're a writer, I go back. I mean, I probably I have PTSD from second grade where just how I do math different. I think my brain works differently because I don't think I could tell you a sentence structure to save my soul. I'm not a writer in the traditional sense. I don't think I write from my heart. I've been told that multiple times that, wow, you write, it sounds like you, it sounds like your voice. So of course I've been playing with AI and, putting things in and what that's helping me do is organize thoughts. But I think it's important that my voice still does come through. So working with that and playing with that. And but also I go back to second grade and I can't remember if it was one of the nuns at Catholic school or it was I think it was a teacher, not kind teacher, who basically told me I was never going to be a good writer. So, there again, the things you carry with you your whole life. And at some point you find like, what do they know, right? Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe I need to flip this around and I can only control me. And so it's been fun. I've felt in the last couple of months really much more open and like my eyes are open, my heart is open to writing and getting things down on paper. And maybe it comes with age.
I also think, and we've talked about this, not on the podcast, that I think that the 6 years of us doing this podcast and who you've learned from all the guests that we've had on,
Yeah,
you that's kind of sitting in your brain, right? So when
it
you
sure
go
is.
to
Yeah.
do the writing, you're kind of drawing from different pieces of that has helped you get to where you are. I mean, I tell people all the time that I would not be who I am today sitting here. I'd be a different person if I had never done this podcast with
Yeah.
you.
It's been so fun to watch that transformation, really. And I guess why would you transform and I wouldn't, right? Like we're transforming every day anyway. So the
Yeah,
fact
but
that we've
Katie,
done it,
we did our live event last year. It'll be a year in May, believe it or not.
that's yeah,
On our discovering your third chapter, right?
right.
So that's kind of, you're just taking something that you've always wanted to do, and now you're getting a little more serious about it.
Yeah, that's true. So I will publicly say, is this considered public? I will say for the first time out loud, I really am striving that what I want to do with this series, I think I'm practicing and I am walking down the path of becoming a published writer.
Good.
I
And
believe I believe there's a book in here.
oh, there's several books because you have a lot, you, you have a lot of life experiences.
As do we all. That's where I struggle with it, right? What about my life experiences? But we have a beautiful example of that on our guest today.
Very true. You're right.
And and so let me tell you a little about her. Boy, I'm happy to get off of me.
Yeah, you really took a left angle there. You don't like talking about you, that's for sure.
It's not. I'm a good hype person. I speak in stories. I do tell stories. Things, you're talking to people and it reminds you of something and you think, "Oh,
Even stories that were not even on that subject. You're very
that's
good at
true.
that.
That's true." Well, that's the left turn. That's the squirrel moment. What's the movie I always reference that I just love? Up.
Oh, totally. That's you.
Squirrel. Right? The dog with the squirrel and we're off to a whole nother thing. I really do try to bring it back though.
And sometimes you do a good job of it. Sometimes I have to figure it out and we get there eventually.
Well, let me tell you, AI has been helping with that tremendously.
With
Helping
you?
helping to keep me on task. Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Helping to keep me on task. I literally asking for outlines, asking for memory of what I've written about, and it's almost a free association type of situation when I go in and start memories come up and all of that. So keeping that organized, right? It's a little bit like your post-it notes.
Yeah. And I have several of those daily.
Right. Somebody
Hi,
wanted to say hello.
hi, Tilly. Everybody, it's Tilly. It's Katie's dog, Tilly.
It's Tonka Tilly, hashtag.
Tonka Tilly. Tilly looks very happy this morning.
She is very happy this morning. She was wondering where I was. She found me locked away in the corner. All right, now we're going to go back to our guest. We are going to go back to
Okay.
our guest because
Squirrel,
we have,
squirrel,
yeah, or dog right here, dog
the
with a squirrel.
dog.
Another person who loves squirrels right here. All right, so today we are welcoming Peg Guilfoyle. Before we welcome Peg, I want to tell you something. And now I'm doing another squirrel moment. I had lunch with Robin Richter at Rustica Bakery in Wyzetta, and in your honor, I had a Rachel.
How was it, Katie?
It was incredible.
I can't wait to go home and get one. Like I think about it.
Yeah, I ate half of it and took the other half home. It was so large and so full of gooey goodness.
Did you have a coffee, a latte, an iced tea? What did you have with it for the liquid part?
I had a hot ginger turmeric tea.
Okay.
It was cold. It was that really cold Wednesday, and yeah, so a hot tea was just perfect. And it was packed. That Wyzetta location, I'm telling you, I had to wait for a seat. It was so busy.
That's great.
So
That's wonderful. And that's close to me. So I'll be going to that location.
you'll be going
And
to that one
here's
a
a
lot.
funny story. I got a text from somebody and they're like, we're at Rustica. What are those cookies that we have to have?
Uh-huh.
And so I told her, and then I got another text saying, oh my God, I understand now. Is someone that listens to our podcast.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the chocolate
Oh, the
cookies.
circle of Rustica. It goes on and on. I am heading to Beam Light Sauna. Oh, before we go off of Rustica, when you get back into town, we need to try Minneapolis, their new Minneapolis location.
Okay.
And of course, Southdale is so close to me. I'm there all the
Well,
time.
I have like these moments when I am home where I'm like, oh, I think I need a scone.
Hmm.
And so I've been known to just go and get a scone and eat it in my car.
I did a pickup on Easter Sunday and brought them to
Oh,
brunch.
they were open.
They were open
Wow.
on Easter Sunday, and I brought them to brunch. Mother's Day, I think anytime you can, do a pre-order on Rustica Bakery and bring it to somebody, you're going to make them very happy. I also have an appointment with Beam coming up. I know you're missing your Beam appointments because you're not in town.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, and I'm definitely setting up my regulars once I get back.
do you know that it is good on complexion?
Yes, I tell people that. People that have
Mhm,
rosacea and all that.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. Beam Light St. Louis Park is where we go, and they're fantastic there. Look it up now. Now, Lisa, da, 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 we're going to talk about our guest.
Okay.
Peg Guilfoyle. We are excited to welcome her to the View in the Mirror. She writes from St. Paul, Minnesota. The East Side. I love the East Side. Peg writes from high above the Mississippi River, and she describes herself as full of curiosity, which feels exactly right for someone who has just written a book about noticing joy. So I'm super excited about this, right? Her new book, An Eye for Joy, Noticing the Good World Everywhere, is a collection of short speaking essays that invite us to slow down, pay attention, and recognize the goodness woven into our ordinary life. Peg is an award-winning cultural historian and the author of the Guthrie Theater, Images, History, and Inside Stories, along with Offstage Voices, Life in Twin Cities Theater. Her essays have appeared in major regional publications and on Minnesota Public Radio. One of the things that I read in Peg's book, I am always falling into conversations. I really identify with that. So I'm excited to have a conversation with Peg and learn more about her.
Me too. I don't identify with that very often. Actually, that's not true. That's not true.
You love a good one-on-one conversation.
I like a good one-on-one if I'm comfortable. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm working on that. I'm working on curating conversations.
You don't have to work on that, Katie. You're very good at it.
Thank you, Lisa. I love you so much. This is the place you're supposed to say, I love you too.
I thought you were going to stop recording. I'm so well trained. I love you so much. I wouldn't have read the essay at the beginning that just took my breath away.
Don't leave me hanging. Yes, yes, that was touching. It's interesting to hear your own words in somebody else's voice, which we should talk
Especially
about
mine,
that.
that's more robotic.
I thought it was done beautifully. Thank you.
Well, I got a little choked up when I started reading it a couple times, and I didn't want to do that, so I had to compose myself.
You did get choked up, which is one of
I
the
did.
other reasons that I love you. But now we're back to talking about me, which I don't like. So let's welcome Peg to the podcast, shall we? Hey, Guilfoyle, we are so happy to have you with us.
And I am delighted to be sitting with you. The sun is shining, it's a good morning, and conversation is one of the great pleasures of the world. So I'm happy
Oh,
to be with you.
isn't that true? Well, that's how we're going to start. I'm going to read one line from chapter 9 entitled Girl Needs a Job. I am always falling into conversations.
Isn't it the truth that as you move through the world, one of the great pleasures and one of the great sort of reveals about the beauties and the joys of the world, even in the hard world, is the human interactions that you have every day. They can be big ones and they can also be very small ones. And but every connection that you make with another human, I believe those connections are what knits the world together. And it reveals both the complexity of the world and the connections that we all have on the same planet together. So yes, I remember writing that line, and it's still true.
It's still true. Do you ever find yourself at a point where you just really don't want to have a conversation right now?
Well, let me think about that.
Yes.
It would be a very rare occur a very rare occurrence, in part because some conversations can be surprising in a way that you wouldn't have anticipated. For example, I am one of those people who likes to talk with young people, teenagers. I am not the slightest bit embarrassed to speak to teenagers. I don't really care if they are not interested in talking to me. But if I see a young person, I am very, very likely to just drop something in, like, and it can be something like good-looking piercings or, gee, I like your hair color or whatever it is. I find that opening that door is a way that nourishes me. And it also, I think, reminds people who might not be opening the door that those connections exist, even if there are things that happen in passing, only momentary. Of course, the long ones are even better, but momentary connections prove that the world is one world.
Momentary nuggets of joy.
Yes, very good.
All right. When did you realize you had an eye for joy?
Well, I started writing as a young child, and I think that my enduring affection for words has carried me through since my youth, all the way till now, and for the rest of my time on the planet, I think. So, just to track it just a little bit, when my when I was small, I lived across the street from my grandparents. My grandparents were 19th century people, and they had 19th century bookshelves. And I used to go over to their house as soon as I learned to read, and I would dive into long novels from a previous generation. And I think it taught me, uh, it, uh, I think it taught me something about description and about how reading novels and reading the written word can make clear to you things that are not in your normal route of every day. So I started reading very young, I started writing very young, and I wrote all the way through. And then as the world happens, as the world turns, I got into professions that were very, very word oriented. As a young writer and a young arts manager, I worked with a program called Poets in the Schools in Minnesota, which was an organizing program where we would take young poets, mostly young, and put them in the classroom to work with children. And that was my sort of entry point into the poetry community in Minnesota. And that exploded my mind about the capacity for language and how it expresses. And then I started working in the theater. So I was a stage manager and a production manager in many theaters all over the country. And I spent 10 years at the Guthrie when the Guthrie was concentrating on classics. And that is also a listening profession. You're listening to the script, you're listening to the words, you're listening to how they express what the playwright and everybody wants them to. So the through line is uh, an appreciation for language and a desire, whether it's innate or taught, a desire to use language in my own relationships to the world. And when I think about the long arc, thank you for that good question. When I think about the long arc, I think in a way that those experiences led me to this book and to my work as an essayist.
You talk about your grandparents living in the 19th century and have a 19th century home. I immediately get a vision of this home.
Mhm.
Where was it?
It was in the suburbs of Chicago, and that side of my family, while small, had been living in that particular small suburb since like the 1920s. And I think that they had been collecting those books since then, since
Oh
then
my
too.
gosh.
And living across the street from them, of course, I was of a different generation in a kind of a big high school, big bustling high school, that kind of thing. But I had everyday access to to a quieter world and a quieter literature. And I think that made a big difference in the way that I thought about the world and the way that I still do think about the world. When I write essays all the time, and the new book is a book of essays. Uh, but essayists, at least this essayist, part of that work as an essayist is to walk through the world and look at anything and say, huh, that's interesting. I think I'll think about that. Think about it, write about it. And in that sense, the world is an unending buffet of interest. So many beauties, small and large, so many wondrous things, so many moments of humor. The world is very funny. And as an essayist, you take in all of those things, and then you translate them into your own words and then tell the stories to other people. At least that's the way it works for me.
I feel like you are a gift to me right now as I contemplate and the opening that we talked about was about how I am writing essays. So I feel like I'm wrapped with attention and thank you. I mean, these are just they're nuggets for me and I know they're going to be nuggets for other people and especially talking about, how we put ourselves out in the world. And one thing that strikes me that you just said is listening, right? So writing is an awful lot about listening, which is
It is.
probably a skill that I have need to hone most in my life. How about you, Lisa? You're a good listener.
Yeah, but it's also about observing.
Hmm.
For me, I'm an observer. When I'm working and I'm with clients,
Hmm.
I'm a good listener.
Hmm.
But when I'm just being me out in the world, I'm more of an observer.
In a way, though, Lisa, isn't that kind of the same impulse? You're experiencing the world and you're taking it in, whether you're taking it
I'm
in.
taking it in, but I'm taking it in good and bad with my own judgments.
Uh,
If
Mm.
I listen, I have to clear those judgments. I mean,
so,
doing what I have done for the last 40 plus years, being a wardrobe consultant, I have to clear a lot of judgments that I have because every person that I help is unique in their own way, right? And I have to listen and find out how I can get in their head and help them be the best version of themselves, right? So there I'm listening. But when I'm out in the world and I'm not helping somebody, I'm observing.
what you're
And
describing, in a way, is a kind of telepathy, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
when you're with a client.
She's definitely got it.
yeah. But like in a weird example is like because I do what I do and people meet me or they ask me what I do, strangers.
Mhm.
Well, what do you do? I tell, oh my God, don't look at what I'm wearing. Oh my God, I didn't do my hair today. Oh my God, and so they immediately think about that, right? Where I'm an observer, right? If I am not working with you, I don't think about any of that at all. I don't look at them. I don't judge them. I don't see that. So in a way, I am not a good writer, but I'm a good observer. Like it's all in my brain. Right, Katie? I mean,
Uh, Yeah, I 100%. I do think that what we sussed out a little bit, Lisa, today is that maybe you're not a good writer about writing about yourself, but I think you have great and hysterical observations on things. So, what I'm learning is there are different, that gets into the next question, Peg. Why essays?
Well, that's a really good question because there are other literary forms
Mhm.
that are, let's see, what's the right way for me to say this? Sexier than being an essayist. But from my point of view, there's never been any question about the fact that this was the right form for me. I read a lot of nonfiction. I do read some fiction, but I read a lot of nonfiction. But I was influenced early on by a couple of seminal essayists. And if it's okay with you, may I read you a quote about this?
Please.
Do you all remember the name E.B. White? E.B. White was an essayist who worked for the early New Yorker and still sounds as fresh as if he had just clacked those essays out one letter at a time on some ancient Underwood typewriter. Still sounds very, very fresh. And what he said about being a writer, an essayist, is this. He said, the essayist arises in the morning, and if he has work to do, she has work to do, selects his garb from an unusually extensive wardrobe. He can pull on any sort of shirt, be any sort of person, according to his mood or his subject matter, philosopher, scold, jester, raconteur, confidant, pundit, devil's advocate, and enthusiast. And I found that that accurately describes the sort of wide array of things that you can write about as an essayist in this complicated world. And he defines the essayist's work in this way, just one more. The essayist, he said, is a self-liberated man, woman, sustained by the childish belief that everything he thinks about, everything that happens to him, is of general interest. And I am guilty of that, as are most essayists. When you're writing in the first person, that is the water that you're swimming in, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we need to set that aside for when you and I have coffee and I pick your brain. But what's interesting is, Lisa, did you pull into the fact that the essayist, this E.B. White, is talking about his wardrobe that he puts on
Oh
based
yeah,
on what he's going
I honed
to?
in quite quickly on that
Of
because it's
course
so
you
true.
did.
It's so true. I mean, what uniform are you going to wear today? That's what I say.
That's very true. Very, very true. And is it true across all professions?
Yeah, if you want to get a message across.
Mhm.
This morning, I got a text from a client who's going to be on the New York Stock Exchange, right? And so she laid out what she was going to wear, and she always in approval, right? Lisa, is this good? And I said, it's perfect. But what I teach my clients is where you are in the world that day matters what you put on. And so, being at the New York Stock Exchange in the position that she's in, she has to look very differently than she does the next day when she's with her two daughters hanging out in New York, right? You still need clothes to put on, you still need to get dressed, but they're very different clothes, just like your essays you write.
You know, that's a really interesting way to think about it. When I started work on this book, we didn't know each other then, but I started to think in a way about how I was going to present in the world at public appearances, at readings or speeches or video work, or I did some media work, did some TV work when the book was released. And I really did have to think about that every day, including having to reteach myself how to put on mascara.
Oh, yeah, you did a great job. And the funny thing about that is that when people come to me and they're like, okay, I'm having headshots done, what should I wear? And it's like, it's really not what you're going to wear. You actually need to put makeup on because being in the camera, you want to see your eyes, you want to see your cheeks, you want to see your lips. And the only way you're going to do that as we age is with makeup. And people don't think about that. And mascara, lipstick are the two most important things. Even if someone never has worn makeup in their life, if they're going to be on TV or they're going to get their headshot done, they have to have it on. And I've had clients where I literally have had to put mascara on them because they had no clue even how to open up the mascara. And it's funny. I mean, we laugh, we have
Me
fun.
too.
But it's very
Yeah.
true. I think it's very true and it's very important. And I think when you feel good is too simple a way to say this, but when you feel good about the way you're walking through the world, I think it makes you feel more strong, more powerful, more appropriate, more ready for what the world is going to bring to you. I've found that to be true.
Yeah, I think, and we've said this many, many times, Katie's heard it a lot. You're on your best game. I mean, you've written your essays, right? You know what they say.
Mhm.
You're good at writing. But when you're out in the world and nobody knows you and you want them to listen to you, the first thing they're going to do is judge you on how you look.
That's right.
Then they're going to decide if they're going to listen to you.
That's right. Yeah. Very true.
And and that's what I've made a career doing.
So then let's go into the next question then, or the question that comes, how has the response been to your beautiful book? It is
I
an eye for joy.
it I have been so happy about this, in part because of this, the response to this book and the response to my essay series, the Motley Peg series, which I run through my website, is direct. It's reader to me and me back to the reader, and it's intimate. People write to me. The essays are about all kinds of different things. There are essays about art, the essays about travel, essays about these human interconnections that we were talking about, all different kinds of essays. And what I find is that when I put them out into the world, people write back to me and they tell me which ones are speaking directly to them. And it's almost always a different one. So it's not like there's just one of a set of essays that people love. It's that people who are reading love something about different things that are contained in the work. And it's heartening because uh, uh, essayists, writers in general, your writing life is actually kind of a solitary life. You spend a lot of time in your head. You spend a lot of time um, thinking about shaping the thing that's in your head and getting it on the page. And uh, it's not, hmm, there are social aspects to it, but a lot of time you spend alone. And that contact directly with my readers is very nourishing for me as a writer. The other thing is that putting together a book takes a long time. So the more immediate connection by putting out the essay series is really feeds me as a writer.
Tell us more about that, and let's give a quick plug to your website address as long as we're talking about the essays.
The web is www.pegguilfoyle.com, pegguilfoyle.com, and it talks about the new book, talks about my other books, and I invite listeners here to go to that website and sign up to receive my essay series, Motley Peg, which really can be about just about anything every couple of weeks right into the inbox. And can I give you an example of one of
Yeah.
those? About the beauty of the world and also about the funny things in the world. So here's one that is one of the Motley Pegs. I was in a resort town a few months ago and I needed some groceries. And I went to a grocery store where I'd never been before. And so I was looking up the way you do at the signs that are on the above the aisles that tell you what's in there. And I was looking for something, I don't know what. And the aisle 4 sign in this grocery store said pasta, canned seafood, canned meat, $1 million. And I looked, looked again, and I looked over my shoulder, and there was a young staff person who was looking at me, looking at the sign, who came over and escorted me down the aisle and said, "I'm so sorry, we're out this week." But I went back there, and it was something that I saw in the world that was witty, that led to a conversation that I might not otherwise have been in. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
Yes.
but they obviously do that because they want people to laugh, or they should have like a camera. You know,
Yeah.
what was that show where
Oh, right.
they had the camera and you could watch people's faces? But how cute is that?
It was cute. And the aisle one over, the bottom thing in the aisle 3 or 5 or whatever it was whatever, Lost Spouse was the last.
It was
Yeah.
either the candy section or the liquor section.
One or the other.
See, Lisa, you're a humorist.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, back to Peg. Is joy innate or trained?
My inclination about writing this book is that it's a book about being inclined toward joy. And the premise of the book is that the world has joy in it. And the more you look for it and see it and lift it up, the more of it you see. So, so when my children were small, and we gathered at the dinner table, I often made this little maternal speech. I would say, in a maternal way, I would say, tell me one thing that you saw or heard or thought or learned today that was beautiful or funny or interesting or new. It was a way of talking and of getting them to talk to me. But I also wanted them to learn a kind of perception. I wanted the beautiful or interesting or funny or new things to kind of pop out from the background, surrounded by a little glow, a little buzz. I didn't want them to miss the beauties that were there. It's my belief that the more you look, the more you see, and the more you see, the easier it is to see the other beautiful things in the world. Poppies, we're coming up on gardening season. Poppies as a flower self-sow, they seed themselves. And it's my belief that the inclination toward looking for the beauties in this world also self-sows. And the more you do it, the more you see.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Said a little different way, you're building muscle for joy.
Mm. Yes, yeah, yes, I think that's right. Um, I think it is exercise. It's choiceful isn't a word, and I'm a writer. It's a choice that you can make, and I think the more you do it, the better you get at it.
100%. Do you ever struggle, like literally struggle for days on end trying to find the right words?
I don't struggle much with the essays, and I think that's because the impulse behind the essays is clear and strong, and also because I give myself grace to write about lots of different kinds of things. So I might be writing about that funny thing in the grocery store, or I might be writing about somebody that I ran into in the park who was singing aloud to themselves and what the joyful way they were moving through the day, or other kinds of things. Um, so the buffet that I referred to before gives me a wide array of topics and gives my readers a wide array of topics to read me.
That makes sense. Is there a practice of noticing?
I believe that there is. Um, I think that and I think that there are ways into it. I think that staying open to the odd and the interesting is important. Being willing to seek and research and find out backstories. I'm very big on backstories. Talking with strangers, we already talked about that. Moving curiously through the world. But one of the essays in the new book is an essay called Run with the Enthusiasts. And the point of that essay is that you can find people who are joyous by habit or by nature. And when you spend time with them, it doesn't really matter what they're enthusiastic about because enthusiasm itself is transmissible. You can catch enthusiasm from other people. And so when you see something, anything at all that piques your interest, you can look harder. A way to do it is to revisit your earlier in life passions. There might be a campfire, a spark there that can be blown on. Try a new focus, follow sparks. And one really good way to do it is to become a trusted friend of a small child, a small one, and then listen to them because they're looking through the world with brand new eyes, and you can catch that too.
They have no judgments.
But isn't that the beauty of being a grandparent? Just like, there's different things from the mouth of babes or, like the innocent or, the things that they come up with, that you're at the same place looking at the same thing and they say something to you and you go, that happens to me all the time. And I'm like, wow, I wish I would have thought about it that way. That is not how I'm looking at that, and it helps. It helps.
It really does. They're so pure.
And it's part of our work in the world to uh, 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 encourage that atmosphere around our grandchildren, but also all children, that kid with the weird piercings.
Hmm. I love that you do that because you run that risk with a kid who definitely does look different, right? According to societal norms, that they're putting themselves out there, and a lot of times they really don't want to talk about it, or they want to be left alone, or they appear to want to be left alone. So it's that dichotomy of, are you really trying to say, here I am, world, look at me, or are you so internalized? So finding that way into that child, really, at this point, with all of us, I think looking at 60 or beyond, are very much that connection, that link, and the fact that you want to keep that up, or not that you want to, that you do, that that's just part of your lexicon.
I think it's really important, in part because when we get to be mature grown-ups, really, there are going to be kids that don't want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to you. They're gonna dismiss you. They're not gonna respond. They're gonna look away or whatever. But my ego is strong enough to withstand that. I'm not afraid of that. So if even if you're making the point that we're in the same sidewalk and we can wish each other a good day, if that's the extent of it, I believe that that's a worthwhile way to knit the world together.
I love what you say about ego. I sat on a plane coming out to California yesterday, and I sat next to a man who I first thought he was sitting in my seat. And so I was wrong. I was in the seat that was next to him. And, he was very, showed me the seat on his, and I'm like, well, clearly I can't read. So I apologized and I sat down, and a little further away in the trip, I spilled coffee on him. It was I spilled coffee on this poor man. And you don't know me, Peg, but Lisa knows that if I'm sitting next to somebody, I end up with a conversation, and I have some of the greatest plane stories of all time, and meeting people that I still have relationships with through social media, whatever, or by getting to know them. Or it didn't take too long. I sat on the plane last week with a man who ended up knowing Joel Maturi because he was in his high school class back in Wisconsin. And Joel Maturi is one of my beloved friends and also the former athletic director at the University of Minnesota, and just a dear man. And so this connection, so these weird connections that happen that are just delightful. So this man back yesterday is not giving me anything, right? And I spill on him, and he's dressed very nicely. Not characteristic for going to Palm Springs, but my first thought is, thank God he's got on dark pants, because it mostly went there, and I'm helping mop up, and the flight attendants were right there helping us and all of that. And he would not, and I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. He wouldn't look at me, wouldn't, there was no interaction. And I thought, so finally towards the end, and it was killing me that there was not, like, I couldn't make a connection with this person. And then my thought was, well, his loss, because I could have offered him something. So I had to turn it. At first, I'm like, what did I do wrong? What was all this? So all of this is playing out in my head as this experience happened. And so the last words with this man, where I said, well, I hope you've dried off. It looks like you have some sort of a presentation that you're going to. And I said, an important presentation. He said, I do. And I said, well, hopefully this is the worst of your day. And he said, I hope so. Thank you. And I got a thank you. And so I thought, okay, I've closed that little loop up. But it taught me more about myself in that moment. So when you're that observant in the world, are you constantly adapting your viewpoint as well?
Every interaction has two sides to it, but I think, and the world is not, you know, let's 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 acknowledge the world is not universally joyous.
No, it's heavy right now.
It's heavy. It's heavy, and uh, and you never know. You never know what the other human is going through either.
Right.
So maybe that person is on the way to an important presentation. Maybe the person with whom you try to speak uh, has suffered a loss. Maybe that person is turning a corner in their life or whatever. You don't know what other people are bringing to the interaction, but you do know what you're bringing to the interaction. And if your choice is to try to engage, try to see the beauty, maybe share a amusing word or two, um, that's that's as far as your own reach extends. The other person they have to be in charge of their own reaction to that. Does that make sense to you?
It totally does. It totally does. And that's sort of in a 3 hour flight, all the things that I went through as I was watching the second Oz, so Oz for Good, which, poor Elphaba really never got what she wanted either. So I was looking at the interesting parallels to that. Peg, this has been amazing and it goes quickly and I just love your heart. And I want to know, we have our nonprofit spotlight that we talk about. First, before we get there, well, no, let's do that after your nonprofit, but you picked Neighborhood House.
I did.
So tell me about Neighborhood House and how did you connect and what pulls this for you?
Neighborhood House is a long-standing organization on the west side of St. Paul. West St. Paul is actually south of St. Paul. So
Yeah.
it's right across the street from downtown in the West Side neighborhood. And it's a community organization that does all the good things that we would do for all the individuals that we would know. They do it all at scale. So there is a food shelf, there's a clothing closet, there are language classes, there's a gym, there's all kinds of great stuff at Neighborhood House. And particularly when um, hmm, when things are hard, as they have been, I observe that Neighborhood House is an organization that steps up their game to continue to help. I admire them very much. So it's Neighborhood House in West St. Paul, South.
That's fantastic. And it is neighborhoodhousemn.org is the website to get more information on Neighborhood House since 1897. That
Yes, it's a
organization has been
long-standing
working.
organization, and it has a wide variety of different kinds of people who support it. So, just a quick story about that. They were doing a fundraiser a few months ago that was an art auction, a silent auction, and my husband and I went over and we went to some location. I'm not even really sure that we knew where we were, and we went, and it was a silent auction setup. And there were probably 100 people at the silent auction, and it was almost all young artists, young families, sort of vigorous neighborhood of young people who were out to support Neighborhood House. So I found that encouraging because it indicated to me that they have a breadth of support in the neighborhood. And those, I guess maybe if you're founded in, what did you say, 1897, it
Yeah.
gives you time to sink those roots. But
Yes.
those roots are important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Now, tell us if people want to engage with you, get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Best way to do it is to go to the website, www.pegguilfoyle.com. Do you want me to spell it?
Yes, let's spell Guilfoyle.
So no caps, no underlines, no nothing. It's Pegguilf as in Frank, Oyle.com. Pegguilfoyle.com. And there you can read about the book. There are links to buy the book, including links to all the five-star reader reviews that I've been so happy to receive as a writer, and also a link there to sign up for Motley Peg, the free, periodic, wide-ranging essay series that I put out.
Love it. And we have to note praise from Chris Crowley and Garrison Keeler. Very impressive. Bravo.
It made me very happy. as a writer, we talked a little bit about the solitary nature of the writing. So there does arrive a happy moment when you get a sense of how people are reacting to the work. And those were two very happy moments in my process for this book.
Fantastic. And how about, are you on any social media?
I am. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm reachable through those methods as well.
All right. Thank you, Peg, so much for your time. And you did a wonderful job on the mascara, the lipstick, but the biggest thing is the smile on your face and the open spirit that just absolutely comes through. And really, isn't that what we all want when we look in the mirror? Is that view of ourselves that puts out what we want to bring back in, which is just such a giving nature.
I'm just delighted to have been with you. Thank you so much for this good, excellent conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Peg. And if for more information on us, we're at theviewinyourmirror.com. You can find more info on Lisa and I and go from there, all about. So everyone, keep putting out that view, that beautiful view of yourself. And until next time, we love and honor all of you.